What's up, good people? Welcome to Beyond Sights podcast. I'm your host, Phillip. This is a podcast created around my love for travel. In it, I get to share with you guides to the places I find interesting. From tourist hotspots to locations that we are just discovering, I will cover it all. You'll hear raw stories, adventures and misadventures during my trips. Join me and let us explore Beyond Sights. In the first episode of Beyond Sights podcast, I begin by asking you a question. What comes to your mind when you hear Taita Taveta County? For me, three things came to mind, especially before 2019. Hills, Tsavo National Park, and beautiful people. So in 2019, December, I got to put this curiosity that had built over time within me to a test. And I had a 4-day trip that traversed the whole county. And this year, February, I went for round 2 of that trip. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you why you need to visit Taita Taveta County and what your expectation should be in terms of experiences and places to visit. First things first, a brief overview of this county. It lies in the southern part of Kenya, in an area previously part of Coast Province. In terms of landscape, there are plains and hills, and there are 2 lakes, Chala and Jipe. The community living in this county are the Taita, and their language is Kidawida. There are 4 major towns which are also constituencies. One is Voi, which is found along the Mombasa-Nairobi highway. Second is Taveta, which is along the Kenyan-Tanzanian border. The third is Undanyi, which is found up the Taita Hills. And lastly, we have Mwatati, which is the county headquarters and the most centrally placed town. So how do you get to that place? Well, you can use road or you could use railway. There is an SGR station in Voi, and so you can board the Madaraka Express from Nairobi to Voi, which will cost you 700 shillings. And from the station to Voi town, you'll pay approximately 100 shillings. If your preferred mode of transport is by road, then you can easily find a bus or shuttle to Voi. That is if you're not using your private means. If you're going through a tour agency, then that will be sorted out. While at Voi, you can access the 3 other major towns. And what I would recommend is this. Before you plan your journey, you should have an itinerary written down where you want to go. And depending on the activities and places that you want to visit, that will dictate how your movements will be. And so, in my case, I did not have much written down in the form of an itinerary. So, because I did not know much about this place, I went to Voi. I stayed there for one day. I arrived there at 12 noon and stayed there the whole evening and left the next day. I went to Taveta, and then that same day I proceeded to Undanyi. So you will be organizing where you're going to sleep and all that. So it's easy to get a booking or reservation before you leave, so that you don't have an inconvenience looking for a place, especially if you arrive late. But there are a number of hotels, so that shouldn't be much of a problem. Now to the places that you should look forward to visit while you are in this region. Number 1 is Tsavo National Park. There are 2 sections of the park. So there's Tsavo West National Park and Tsavo East National Park. The dividing feature is the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. While you're going to Mombasa, on your left is Tsavo East, on your right is Tsavo West. How do you access Tsavo East National Park? You access it through Voi town. For the Tsavo West section, you'll have to go to Ngangao. Ngangao Center is along Voi Taveta Road. So you'll find your way to Ngangao, and then at the gate you'll be able to be admitted into the park. Things that you should consider: you'll be paying for the passengers, that is you, and depending on the number of people who are there, each person, including the driver and guide, each has to pay 500 shillings. To be specific, 515 Kenyan shillings for adults and 215 Kenyan shillings for children. Then you'll also be paying for the vehicle. 300 for a vehicle less, not more than 6 passengers, and 1,000 for a larger vehicle. So that's what you should consider in terms of what you need financially to enter the park. And then depending on, you have the whole time, they'll give you the KWS rangers will tell you about how to access the rules and all that from the gate. When I visited Tsavo West National Park, I had the pleasure of driving towards Lake Jipe, and at the lake shore there is another KWS Rangers post, and we were allowed to leave momentarily the park. We went there and interacted with the villagers and ate some fish, and then came back. So that is something that you should note. You can actually go, and because Jipe is at the border between Kenya and Tanzania. It's shared by those two countries, and you can take the opportunity of being within the Tsavo West National Park to access the shores of the lake, and you can interact with the villagers, eat some fish. So I did that, and the other activities that you can do within the park will dependent on how much money you have. I'm sure there are lodges there, you can find food there, and all that. Time and money, those are the two factors that you consider before you engage in anything. Just adjacent to Tsavo West at Ngangao is Lumo Conservancy. It is within Lumo Conservancy that you will find the world famous Salt Lake Lodge, and I got the opportunity to enter to the Lumo Conservancy and had a night game drive. That is where I saw the lion. Remember, I just told you that it's not easy to spot these big cats. So I did not get to see a lion during the day, and during the night I talked to my guide, and we drove into the Lumo Conservancy, and there's a spot that we spotted a lion, although from far. I also sighted a jackal, which was a special moment for me. That was the first time I was actually seeing a jackal, and it was at night, so that makes it extra special. Also, while at Lumo, I got to see some buffaloes. I had not sighted the buffaloes while within Tsavo West National Park. So what's my point is, sometimes it's not guaranteed that you will sight these animals, and in my case I had to go an extra mile to look for exactly what I was seeking, and so that's just something that you should bear in mind. Yes, that's all about Tsavo West. I'm looking forward to going to Tsavo East. The special thing about this region is this: in terms of wildlife, next to Tsavo East and Tsavo West, we have Chulu Hills, which is also a national park, and there are animals there. And to the western side, we have Amboseli and Kimana Sanctuary. You can easily access Amboseli via Tsavo. Then the hills, and with the hills comes forests. I like hills because I can hike. I like hiking. Where there's a hill, you're most likely to see forests. But of course, there are sections of which are concentrated, so we'll have special forested area, which is probably managed by Kenya Forest Service. And I've visited one forest, which is Ngangao Forest, which is an indigenous forest, and I've hiked two peaks of Taita Hills. Two peaks. In 2019, I hiked to Wesu, which is just adjacent to Undanyi, and this year I managed to reach the highest point of Coast Province, which is Vuria Hill. The peak of Vuria Hill is at an elevation of about 2220 meters above sea level, so it's that high, and the hiking experience there is massive, and so it needs a lot of physical fitness on your side to actually reach there without losing hope halfway. So let's start with Wesu. Wesu is next to Undanyi, and from Undanyi you can actually hike to the top of Wesu Hill. If you don't like intensive hikes, then you can take a bike to Wesu District Hospital. There's a center there, and from there, from the center, you can hike to the hilltop and back. I mean, I left the hotel room on that day at 10 a.m. and by say 12 I was there. And mark you, I was hiking from Undanyi town, so I had to hike longer than I probably will do if you take a motorbike to Wesu District Hospital, that center, and then hike from the foot of the hill instead of from Undanyi center, which is one thing that you'll realize, every place seems hilly, so it takes time to adjust. Yeah, and it's a beautiful experience. From Wesu Hill, you'll see the whole of Undanyi town. So the Undanyi is kind of, it's not a valley, but it's on the lower side. So you'll be able to see Undanyi, you'll be able to see the Voi area. The other side, the side you won't be able to see is the side going to Taveta. To access that side, now we go to Vuria Hill. Vuria Hill, like I've said, is the highest point of the former Coast Province. It's at an altitude of 2220 meters above sea level, and most of the time it's misty. On the day that I was traveling 1 month ago, it was scorching hot on that day, so I had no experience with mist. I carried my jacket. In fact, I was reminded to carry my jacket, but I didn't have to use it because it was sunny. But for your benefit, you remember to carry water, food. You don't want to hike for 2 hours and then leave that place after a few minutes because you're hungry, you want to go back. No, you need to carry food. So you carry food, you carry a jacket, you carry water, and anything else, maybe shades. So how do you access Vuria Hill? You need to take a motorbike to a place called Ngangao, and from there you'll be able to begin your hike. You then take the direction to Mwanda, and then at the Mwanda center, that's when you now begin the ascent towards Vuria, which is now on your left. So in a nutshell, Undanyi and its environs has a lot of hiking potential. If you are a hiking buff, if I have to use that term, then you have a lot of places that you can hike to. I've hiked Wesu, I have hiked Vuria. There's one remaining called Iyale that I'm considering going. So I visited Ngangao forest, and one thing that you will appreciate is that it's an indigenous forest. I was told that there's a species of birds that is only around that section. You cannot find it outside the Taita ecosystem. The same for trees. They are indigenous trees. There are trees there which are probably 300-400 years old. It's called the mother tree. It's very wide. They say it takes 10 people holding their hands together to completely surround the tree. It's so huge. And there's also a cave tree. You can stand at the center of the tree and look up. You'll be practically within the tree. So that's something special about it. So you can hike, you can enjoy the forest, the scenery, There's a lot to see if you are a true nature lover. On top of all these things that I've mentioned, you have Lake Chala. Lake Chala is next to Taveta, and it's a crater lake. Just like Jipe, part of it is in Kenya, part of it is in Tanzania. So you can, if you are able to swim through it to the other end, you'll then find yourself in Tanzania. A warning though, the lake has had multiple cases of drowning, something about it. And so, you'll hear people talking about superstitious stuff around there. But one thing that I'm sure about, I'm not a good swimmer, so I have never tried to swim there. If you're a good swimmer, that's when I feel you should attempt it, because it's not worth the risk if your life is the cost. And so that's one place. Chala is one place that I have to mention. It's a special place. Other areas, now other places that I have to mention. In Weruga is another small center close to Ndani. Around that area there's a cave. It's called Kenyatta Caves. In 2019 I got to visit the place. It has historical significance. That's why I find it worth visiting. Now, something important. When you go to a place, two things that will make you connect to those people: eating their food and speaking their language. Well, I know two, three Kidawida words. That's not impressive by any standards. What really I feel like I should have done enough was to eat the local food. I wanted to taste the delicacy of the Taita, which is kimanga. What I'm told is kimanga is a mixture of beans and plantain, that is cooked banana. I thought I was going to have that experience. That's something that I'll try later. As a recap, in this episode, I've highlighted what you can do in Taita Taveta County. You can go for game drives in Tsavo East. You can go for game drive in Tsavo West. You can hike the hills, that is Vuria, Wesu, Iyale. You can swim in Lake Chala. You can eat fish at the shores of Lake Jipe. You can have nature walk in the forests, such as Ngangao, and you can interact with the community. You can expect future episodes to drop regularly. In the next one, we will be talking about the SGR experience. I will be taking an SGR train from Nairobi to Suswa. So thank you for listening. I can't wait to hear your feedback on this podcast. You can connect with me on Facebook at Phillip Nyalenda and follow this podcast on whichever platform that you'll be listening to, be it Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Anchor, all those. Ciao.